Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me for the next couple of minutes while I talk to you about this new painting of mine called On the Western Plains. Now, before we delve into the painting in some detail, let's just look at the size of it. Now, I'm stood about 6 feet away from it, but as I go in, look, now we're starting to get into the big ones now because I can't even get my arms from side to side. This is 300 centimetres by 130. Ta-da! So it's what I would call big. So you're going to need a very big wall space to hang this, and plenty of room for it to breathe as well, because it's quite like a in your face kind of artwork. All right, so it's big. So let's delve into a little bit more about what this painting's all about. So if I stand away a little bit, it's really interesting to see what you think this reminds you of, because I've had quite a lot of feedback about this for, well, probably 3 or 4 weeks now. And what's really interesting is that your brain probably initially thinks it's going to look like something like, I don't know, let's for argument's sake say like a mirage, or maybe it's like a big sandy beach somewhere, or some outcrop of rock somewhere. Okay, that's the kind of feedback I've had so far. But it will be very interesting to see what you think about it. Now that's good, because whether you like it or not, almost at this point is irrelevant. It's interesting to see what subject matter this begins to form in your head. Now, our brains are hardwired to do this because it's our way of making sense of the world around us. I guess in primeval times it was us trying to figure out whether something was trying to kill us or whether we could kill it and eat it. So there's a very, very basic need for us to make sense of the world that we are in. And it's exactly the same when you look at a piece of abstract art. Now, it doesn't always connect with you. You might not always see something in it, but the good abstract art, you should be able to see something out of it, because your brain will try and make sense of what you're looking at. And the more abstract it is, the more your brain has to work to do that. Okay. So anyway, so off the back of what it might look like or not look like to you, let's have a look inside as to the construction and the materials. Okay, so like with all my paintings, I use an enamel paint. And this has some very, very unique qualities over and above a lot of the paintings that you might see as you walk around commercial galleries and public spaces. Now, in the composition of this, I decided that my palette would be quite limited in its colour. So what we feature fairly bright yellow. It's got hints of melon in it. I like to talk about top and bottom notes of colour. It's just the way my mind works and how I interpret colour. Allied to that, there are a couple of blues, which we're going to come to and have a look. Now, over towards the left-hand side, we've got what is called Swarez blue, which is my own colour blue, which I'm quite proud of, and that's got a very small metallic flake in it. And then I've just woven this into the left and the right sides. There's a slightly darker version of it, which we'll have a look at in a little while. We've also got big features of black. I mean, black is very, very dominant in this particular painting. But what you may not be able to see, certainly on pictures, and which is probably going to be quite difficult on video to see, is that actually I've managed to put texture into the actual black itself. So the black doesn't remain black for very long, as you can see now as the light hits it. And you do get a lot of different textural variations in the paint. There's also some very interesting patterns where I've deliberately made the paint react to what's going on underneath. And then there are also hints of grey also peppered throughout the black as well. Now, while we're on the subject of grey, grey is a very, very important addition to this painting, because without the grey, the whole thing becomes very, very stark and actually, I think, quite difficult to look at. So in actual fact, by bringing in the grey, particularly down on this bottom area here, I look like some really weird weather person presenting the weather, but down here, particularly, there's a whole huge swathe of grey which forms underneath the black. Now what the grey does, it has the benefit of being able to act like a midway point. That's between the harshness of the yellow but also the finality of the black. And what I mean by that is that black is a very, very final colour. You know, there's not really anywhere you can go with black once it's on the canvas. It's there and it ain't going away no matter how much you try and cover it up. So if you're going to go really, really into black in a big way, I think that depending on the other colours that you put with it, you need this midway point to sort of calm everything down. But the other thing that the grey does, which is a very subtle thing, and our brains help us understand this, the grey also acts as a point at which you can separate light colours from dark colours, and it just helps you see both together. It actually helps you see them better than if they're stuck on their own. There is a principle in this if you search for it online. I'll see if I can post it underneath the video. But it's having this halfway house. It helps you to understand everything that's light and colourful and everything that's dark and foreboding. And actually by combining all that together, you get a really, really pleasant, nice, interesting palette of colours to use. So if you have a little look now on the yellow, you can see that it's not just a single swathe of colour. There are lots of patterns and intricacies built into it. Now there are small elements of blue working their way through, which almost gives that kind of feeling of green, but I've really pulled back in quite a way so as not to turn the yellow into something green. You know, I just wanted this to sit as a yellow line, but you know, this is a painting made up of some quite bold and quite simple shapes. So I think if you're going to add a little bit of intrigue into that, it's probably a good idea to shove in some details. So again, similar pattern if you've watched some of the other videos. It's got to work from a distance, which this obviously does. But having said that, if you're sat on a chair or a chaise longue here, staring up at it one sunny afternoon, it's got to work on a personal level. And that's what these videos are trying to do, is to give you a chance to experience it, but from a much deeper perspective, both physically and from a distance point of view. So just a quick look now at the blue on the right hand side. So this is a different variation of my Swarez blue. This is a lot deeper. Again, but this is just, I guess I'm just trying to balance colours either side. You know, you could argue that this is quite a painting sort of balanced over to one side only, but in actual fact, because of the motion that goes from one side to the other, it actually becomes anything but that. It becomes very balanced, in my opinion. And really, just to finish off, we've just got the top applications, and dropping down these horizontals, it just felt like a really good thing to do. I can't really explain why that would be the case, but it just needed something to give it a little bit of height. You know, this is an incredibly wide painting, but I wanted it to feel like it was quite deep as well, and it had some upward structure as well as pulling itself from one side to the other. So that's the reason why the two uprights exist. If you want to think of them as something, or trees, go for it. And then finally we've got the brush washes at the top, which literally are, well, whatever you want them to be. Okay, but yeah, it's just really, it felt as I was walking around it that was the way that I wanted to fill the top of the canvas up, rather than have these clearly defined shapes. So I think, you know, you've got soft shapes, hard shapes, soft colour, light colour, very colourful, balancing colours. You've got pops in at either end. You've got textures all over it. I mean, again, it's really, really difficult to see on a photograph just what kind of textures exist even on the white background. Look, I'll be honest, if you think that this is one-dimensional, it isn't. You know, and the background itself is just full of these scoops and loops and bumps and humps and scrapes where it goes lower and then pools where it goes higher. You know, and again, as light catches even just the background layer, it becomes, well, a painting in its own right, to be honest with you. So I'd like to think that on the Western Plains, this painting kind of hits you on a number of different levels. That's the hope I'm trying to get with it, that you can appreciate the paint techniques and the colours, the composition and the separation, how everything has been balanced out, even though on the face of it, it looks like it's weighted to one side. And I also think that, you know, for just generally a large piece of art, it's just got that huge bang for your buck anyway. And then it's something you could always appreciate. Anyway, I'd be really interested to hear your comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe somewhere down here and drop me a comment. It'd be great to hear from you. And if you're watching this on the website, get in touch, let me know what you think. Okay, that's it. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you on the next video.